partner. This is Baje Stage TV. Tonight, we are here at the Queen's Park Steel Shed. Originally a storage space, but then it became a people's place where people held all kinds of meetings. Marcus Garvey held a meeting here. Grantley Adams. It was a place where they had calypso tents, poetry competitions, all kinds of things happened here at the Queen's Park Steel Shed. There was poetry too. In fact, our theater practitioner today is the one and only poet, also actor, also playwright, also director. Who are we talking about? We're talking about the one and only Winston Farrell. That's right.
You don't really want the eye to get. One look at the eye, you'll see that I'm a real Don, man. Don is the man in the van. Where is your van?
Man, he's on a beach bum, man.
Beach bum? I'll have the eyes know that I'm a shoreline executive.
I was raised in Carrington Village, Bakeoff Road. That's in between Tweedside Road, the bustling Tweedside Road at the time with the hawkers selling and the stores. And the other side, the Bridge Road, where the sidings of the bridge had fallen away, and as a little man you're scared to walk on the Bridge Road because you don't want to fall into the bridge. Fortunately, back then they had a lot of cars on the road. And then to the far north of that would have been the prison. So on the prison Bridge Road on one side, Tweedside Road, Railway Road on the other side. We was raised in that area, town, and then we moved to Christchurch. That's probably when we were still at primary school, so we would go on St. Christopher's, and we would have had a lot of open fields to run around, some sugar cane, but most of all sea rocks. From Silver Sand all the way down to Oyston. So, summers were really beautiful. I spent most days at the sea. Sea beef and conky winkies and sea eggs. You walk and pick sea eggs, so, you know what I mean. And also the creation of there's a good one for you. There's a good one. This is the one. And you got this. This is exclusive that you got, bro.
Okay.
The making of a beach. As boys, we would have played around and fish around the Enterprise. From Oyston going up Enterprise, you had Cotton House. And you go around to the, what we would call it there, so around the Sea Rocks, up to Burt's Bay, up to the lighthouse. But just outside of Oyston coming up, you had Enterprise Beach, which was no beach, it was just rock and wave crashing into rock. And then they decided to build a Coast Guard and suck the water out and bring in boulders and create a beach. At the end of the day, they had a beach. And they had really nice below. On the southern side was nice and white sand, and you can walk probably out for those who were not really swimmers. And most of the natives would frequent on the below side. And the above side, they had sand, again, long white sand, and the sea was a little bit rough on that side. And there's where the tourists will come, and the Caucasian people will come and lie out with their towels. And we as young boys, we saw this beach created, and we started to enjoy this beach. Much of natty was created on that beach before they planted trees. And we would stay home and say, let me get down Miami, during the day because we at least one evening and night they used to show Miami Vice on TV. Miami Vice opening, with the opening of Miami Vice, Don Johnson, he would have the shot of a beach, nice white sandy beach. So in our minds, we couldn't get to Miami, we just saw it on the TV, but when we looked, that beach that was created, in our minds looked like a Miami. So we would say, let's go down Miami. We got Miami! We got Miami! And if something is said repeatedly and over and over and over, and it sticks. And that is how Miami Beach got its name.
So in that period now, what was your exposure to theater or acting? Do you have any interest in being a theater person, a poet at that time in those days?
In my first collection, Echoes of Young Blood, Anthony Hinkson wrote, Winston Farrell, an artist born, versatile, courageous, flamboyant, as a human being, mild, quietly unconventional, as a friend, genuine, as an actor, strong, of dynamic presence, as a poet, ambitious. For Winston, life is living art, in movement, in verse, in body and spirit. That rhythm perpetuates itself in Echoes of Young Blood. His philosophy not to be ever so good at everything, just to be himself. So, saying that to say artist born, something that he probably noticed because I can remember from very young being involved in some kind of performance. I mean, I was kind of like an only child in a way with a grandmother, so I used to do a lot of playing on my own. I can remember playing a little man playing, role-playing characters and doing stuff. But you know, they say play is the significant thing in child's development, you know what I mean? We play. And I remember even with my mates at school at that time, we did a lot of playing. We didn't have, in those days, gadgets to play around with, so we actually played. We played kneeling down cricket, we played sticky, we played hopscotch, we played lashes, we played catcher, we played falls. You know what I mean? Having those early days of television, we watch some of the, you know, early kung fu and action pictures. You know what I mean? We had a game called Falls as little men growing up. You know, so we played a lot. And then Sunday school, we used to go to Sunday school. We used to go to church on a Sunday with my grandmother in the morning. So I had Sunday school in the morning and then join her with the big people service. Then we would come back home. I would go then to the Christian Mission. And it was at the Christian Mission Church, which was in the Gap, right there in Bear Cross Road. And that's a couple houses from where I was living. That I would have had my introduction into actual performing before audience as a little person, you know what I mean, 6, 7 maybe, during recitations. You know what I mean? You go and salute, say a recitation, and then salute at the end. And the church was an interesting place because it was the same church that I would have, performed as a youth, but at the same time, the same place that I would have seen Joseph Niles and the console was Joseph Niles. I saw Joseph Niles perform, and it was awesome. He was an awesome performer. That time he was still a conductor on the bus. I couldn't be more than 8, 9 years old. I was so old. Joseph Niles was breaking down the little church there, so in the village. And then, you know, for the harvest times, and you will have these other churches that will come down and bring down the choirs. And so it was pure drama, pure theater. I was exposed to at that tender age in the church, in the Christian Mission Church. And then at school, I think there's where my own writing started because I would we had the opportunity to, at the end of the school term, the last day and the second last day, and so the last week before school over, because those were the days when you had to clean the desk the last day and thing, right? But that last week, we had the opportunity to do some little drama in the classroom where the teacher was correcting the books. And again, the influence of the television, because we used to role play a lot of Perry Mason dramas, a lot of court scenes. So, the characters are lawyers, and we just back up the story. And, we were influenced by the TV in terms of Perry Mason and stuff. And we would have done these dramas. And, of course, when you write your composition, the teacher used to read it out and stuff. And I was writing these compositions, and one day one of my mates came to school and said he wrote a poem, 2 poems, and he read them to the other guys and stuff. And then I said, well, I'm going home and I'm gonna write 2 poems too. And I went home and I wrote 2 poems too. And I've been writing poems ever since then.
And the quarrelsome shot, tongue tie, and the howling mile tree, quiet, and the dancing palm tree hands full, withholding the spirit.
A little bit on to secondary school. Fortunately, the secondary school that I was at, I had people who were really into the arts. So we had a lot of extracurricular activities involving the arts, like Omawali Stewart, who was our art teacher. He used to organize hikes, and we would do hikes to Hahican Cliff and down to Bathsheba, and overnight, and roseberry fruit and them kind of things. And then you had Hinkson, who was into drama and writing and stuff. So we had school magazine, and between them all, they created a real cultural village in a way, because you had the Ngungun drummers and dancers. We had a whole band and stuff. So I think it was a fortunate time in terms of where I was at, in terms of the space, the school, the people who I fortunately interacted with. And it's true, Hinkson, who from when I was at school invited me over to the writers' workshop, and there's where I started to got involved with these guys that were a bit older than I am. But for me, it was like a watershed, because I was really coming up on the people like Warner and Maynard and Hinkson and Thompson and Omawali and Harding and Darcy and Chris Moore and Cicely and all of them.
Right now, tourism is my business, man. And this woman from Paris, she's polite and petite and pleasant and pleasing and picturesque.
I'm partly blind.
So I came over to Writers' Workshop when I was at secondary school, probably upper 5th. And it was myself and a couple others from my school, a guy called Ian King and some others. We came in at a time when they had just done the production Rape, I think it was. And they were also doing a filming of Meet Me at Golden Square. So it was at a very high point in the Writers' Workshop. I mean, the Writers' Workshop began some years before my entrance into it in 1975, 76, with people like Anthony Hinkson and Bobby Morris and Ben Craig and a number of other teachers. It really started with some teachers who were mainly teaching English, and they were at Erdiston College. They used to meet at Erdiston College, Erdiston Teachers Training College, and so they started this writers workshop that really mushroomed from just being a writers encounter to theater and drama. And I think it's a kind of transition from theater workshop, because theater workshop would have been the workshop or the theater movement that was before writers workshop. And I think there was some split between Daphne and Elton, and so theater workshop kind of had a split and kind of dissolved. Yoba Yard was created, and writers workshop was happening, or began to happen. So I got involved around 1975, 76, something like that. After doing two school productions with Anthony Hickson at the Garrison Secondary. So I came in at the point where they were about to do Teacher. I actually auditioned for Teacher. And this is where I got my first lesson. Actually my second lesson, because my first lesson was from my mentor, Anthony Hickson, who before, when we went to do his class, the first thing he did was put the broom in my hand and said, make sure that the space was clean. So always make sure the space is clean before you start the work. So with Warner, we did this audition for Teacher, and I got this part with 2 lines. I then decided that I had other priority things that I wanted to do, right? So I could do the play. So another guy got to do it, a guy called Libran, I think his name was, who was a member of play. And up to the day we still smile because Libran in a way struggled with it. So I'm told. Just the 2 lines is, all you hear, damn political pawns. So the play went on. It was a big success, and the play traveled to Trinidad and all kind of things. So you can imagine, I'm like, whoa, Winston Farrell, really. And I know there's something that Earl and I, we never really talked about it, but yeah, I learned the lesson. There were no small parts, you know what I mean? So it was a good lesson to learn very early in my career, really, as an actor, that there are no small parts, only small minds or small characters.
Hi, I'm Dyer Brown, and we'll be right back with more Winston Farrell here on Baje Stage TV.
The thing about Writers Workshop is that it was a good opportunity for me to learn my craft, because back then there were no Bar Center for Creative Imagination, no CXC, Theatre Arts, no Mustard Seed, no Community College Theatre Arts program. So training happened within the groups. Training happened in the Writers Workshop. You met every Saturday and you did workshop training, exercises, classes, and then normally we do 1 production a year. If the going is sweet, maybe you might get into productions, but normally the groups would do like 1 production a year. And then there was Green Room, who also was a group, and they were doing the same thing. You met with Green Room, they did their form of theater. The activity at Writers was a breeding ground for young actors as well, because around the time that I joined, sometime after, you had people like Jack and Guy Goring, another young bunch of actors coming into the fore. Fortunately, Writers Workshop didn't last much longer after that. So by 1979, 80, Writers had folded up. And I don't even want to give you that story on camera. Suffice to say, it was a pretty embarrassing moment at the Commonwealth School Hall. I think a lot of people like to forget this moment, but it happened. It was indeed the last production by Writers Workshop, a poetic collage, a work by Earl Warner, created by Earl Warner, and done as a special presentation for NIFCA. Bad choice in terms of audience, which NIFCA is a family-oriented audience. From back then, we're talking, I think it's 79 or 80 that this would have happened.
Sun ain't gonna shine today. Today is for weather. Bird ain't gonna sing today. They all stiff a feather. So latch down your window, strap down your door, snatch up your picnic and run for the shelter. Cause Jeanette coming, and she coming like a dragon.
So we would have done with Warner. Warner was this is Warner before he was Warner. You know what I mean? Tall boy doing work with Victor Clifford as Pablo and Jojo, taking that leap from working in an 8 to 4 to investing in his craft as a director. Warner was for me influential, inspiring. He brought a level of understanding of Barbadian and Caribbean theater. So even before he went off to do his master's study or even work at the Jamaica School of Drama, that's the Warner that I know, hanging by Warner House. I mean, doing all the things that we did back then as young theater revolutionaries in a way. Really hanging with that Warner. I mean, that Warner would have grown and changed by the time 1982 or so, around the time when Stage 1 would have come in to its own. Started, I think, with Michael Gills and Cicely and those guys with the first production. I think it was called Sweet Talk or something like that. So Stage 1 came through. Writers Workshop folded up. Stage 1 was again a group, so they would have had them, sessions where you would meet. You know what I mean? I would have done a lot of work with Stage 1, a lot of plays with Stage 1. My acting would have started with Writers Workshop. Doing plays like Play Ballad by Andy Hinkson, directed I think by Darcy Boyce. I would have done Signs and Wonders. We did that at Yorba Yard, featuring the guy Shola over there, and quite a number of other people. So the acting started with Writers Workshop. Indeed, from at school with Caroline and Children in the Moonlight, written and directed by Anne Hinkson. But then it was Stage 1 that lifted a bit, because I would have done a number of productions with Stage 1. I would have done things like An Echo in the Bone, which is one of my plays that I think I really love a lot. I played Sun and Crew in that production, and directed by Tom Cross. I would have done a number of pieces with Earl Warner, premiere of Derek Walcott's Branch of the Blue Nile and Beef No Chicken, 2 premiere productions. Would have also done Cigarrin and the Green Knight by Dennis Scott, again directed by basically those that I can remember. There might be one or two other things that I would have done with Warner. Oh, I did a whole series of dinner theater with Warner at Ball's Plantation because we did about 10 years of a dinner theater show at Ball's Plantation called Barbados, which was really the Rachel Pingle story. It was started by Ken Cosby. And eventually a number of directors over the 10-year period or so. I started with Ken, then Warner took over, and we had a break from that script, and he did Rum and Coca-Cola. I would have done Rum and Coca-Cola acting alongside of Warner in that particular run, and then we went back to the Rachel Pringle story. Then Wendell Smith took over the directing of that show, and then I took over at the final end before the show actually closed. So we would have done that work on Warner. Would have worked with Warner in that scenario as well.
And Lieutenant Mara, have Summoney Smith relieved and sent here. Have him stand near. I will need him soon. We are safe here. Only trusted guards on patrol, and my wife keeps an eye on him.
Marijan is well?
Too well. Marijan insists on fighting side by side with me. And I believe she likes the life in the bush more than all of this books and music. Every night she reads by the campfire. Thank goodness I haven't learned how to read.
It was great acting with Warner. I think Warner is more a director than an actor, but he plays his moments well. And as a young actor, I would have learned from, me, working alongside of him. And these scenarios really, without that academic start in terms of school, outside the workshop, the experience of working alongside people like Earl Warner, Victor Clifford, people like Ken Cosby, working with Ken. Ken was very influential in my career as a performer. So working alongside these Claremont Tate, you learn a lot from Tony Thompson. You learn a lot. So I would have learned a lot from working with them, and all of this served me well for when I really started to actually do my practical, academic studies in terms of the work, because I would have come from a practical background or foundation that was pretty strong. So yeah, working with Stage One, I would have also done one of their talk tents. One of the last things that I would have done with Stage One would have been a talk tent. And then I would have had a little interaction with Green Room, not a lot, but I remember doing Andy Hinkson play, two Andy Hinkson short plays, directing them for a Green Room activity, and that's one of the closest relationships that I would have had in Green Room itself. As I was never a Green Room member. Actually, by the time Stage One came around, I was never really a Stage One member either. I would work with Stage One in those days, get a little honorarium for the work. I guess if you were a member, you might not have gotten that honorarium. So I used to hang with Thompson a lot, you know what I mean? Big Brother Thompson. Learn a lot from him, and I'm sure he learned a lot from me. So the two energies, we would have done a couple of things together during the 80s, early 80s. So then this thing called SO Playwriting Festival came around, and that was another turning point for me, because I acted in the first two plays in 2 years of the festival in award-winning plays. Glenville Levels' first play, Purple Painted Sky, which came second, the first year, and his When the Eagle Scream, which came first the second year. And then I decided, look, well, this man winning everything every year, I get ready to play for next year. And I wrote the play. The play was called Glass 7, and the play won the competition. So that started my career in playwriting around 1985. But I wasn't surprised at that because as an actor, and I always had an interest in directing. Even from when I first started writer's workshop, because the guys used to let me play around with them. Imagine, you know what I mean, it was in the workshop, and I actually started directing, you know what I mean, one or two of the guys, and these are senior guys. I mean, I remember doing stuff with the same Darcy boys. Do a lot of work with Darcy boys back in those days.
You ain't got nothing to worry about, man. I'm a pebble from a rock, furthermore crack.
Man, they got me more careful, not so carefree. Man, we understand, alright? And we will back you 99.00%.
To me, like acting, they're supposed to act.
Darcy Boyce was always a technical man, always into stage management and thing, but Darcy Boyce also did some acting.
Okay. Tell us about Glass 7 though.
Well, so we did the Glass 7 production and plays. And at those days, the NCF, the 3 winning plays were produced. So thanks to Tom, and it's always been the expats that's been always in my corner, you know what I mean? Martin Fido, who was a green room person, and he had his play Let's Go Beijing, which he did here just around the time when I was doing Echo in the Bone. And this play had in Allison, young Allison Seeley, and a number of green room players. It was done with green room. But I remember going to see the production last night, and he said, I'm going to take this play to England. I want you to be in it. And in 1985, 84, I was there minding my own business, and he came knock on my door and said, I'm ready to take the play to England, are you ready? And that was my first tour.
Is that the picture you see on Facebook with you in leather or something? You and
Vendel and Evanson and Allison and yeah.
Awesome.
We were in Stoke Newington and we performed this play. It was really a great time, great experience going to England. But we were talking about, it wasn't that we were talking about.
Glass 7?
We were talking about Glass 7 and Tom Cross. Tom Cross was slated to direct because he was one of the directors in the SL Festival, and before he had directed When the Eagles Scream, and I think the year before it was Thompson who had directed me in Purple Pain in the Sky. But he decided, and he convinced the NCF to let me direct my own production of Glass 7. He had that confidence. Yes, man, you can do it, man. You can do it. Yes, man. Yes, man. Yeah. And so I also directed Glass 7. And the response was pretty good. It was so good that we got Roger Barker, who was in Glass 7, produced it for a second showing, which was staged the second time at the George Street Auditorium. Again, interesting production that reflected what was happening at the time in terms of crack cocaine. And you will find that most of the work that I would have created in terms of my plays were plays that deal a lot with some kind of social reality, social realism. So we did Glass 7, and then the next year we did Heartbeat, and that was the last year of the SO Festival, because that was the year that instead of producing the plays, they decided to dramaturge the play. And that year I had placed third, Heartbeat. I had placed third to Carl Inks, Anna Ventura, and first prize by Eichel Tafari, Act Upon Blood. Two very strong and worthy players, really strong, worthy players. But strange enough, after the dramaturg, when my play was dramaturg with Earl Warner and Earl Lovelace from Trinidad. My play Heartbeat was an interesting play from the point of view that it had what a play really needs: dramatic action. It had the other plays. It was really worthy, really nicely written, worthy plays. But Heartbeat was a play that brought. And I guess because I'm an actor, and I understand that what makes the drama is the action. The action is what drives the play, really. All the words that are lovely. It's lovely, poetic even. When you're dealing with drama, you want action. Interesting characters dealing with action. So after SO Playwriting Festival, the landscape changed again from groups to companies, and this is where one might say that the theater, it changed. So basically,
for the better or for the worse?
That I think.
You're talking about the 80s. What?
We're talking about just around the end in 89 or so. So now you are starting to have WWB productions, community theater productions. And these were companies putting on productions instead of groups that had people, actors, working year round and doing a production or two a year. Now you have a company that when they want to put on a production, they just call actors up and do the audition and select them. So that was a shift from in terms of theater development in Barbados, right? So now you had these companies doing these wonderful productions, WWP Productions with Warner Wilson and Boyce. You had community theater productions doing Laugh It Off. You had Bajan Bus Stop Company. You had at one point there were a number of other little companies. Some companies didn't survive as long as others, but so coming through that period, then you started to have stuff happening in schools a little bit more. You started Mustard Seed started to come and scene, community college. So as the millennium change, here's where we are right now. But the foundation was laid in those early days in terms of theater. After SO, for me, as you can see, I was started to get involved more in my playwriting. Of course, as a poet, I was working all the while, as a poet and storyteller all the while, but also getting involved in community development work, using theater as a tool for personal and social development. And also doing a number, working on myself, number of artists and residents across the place, trying to have a more global reach, touring a lot more, doing a lot more outside of Barbados. Fortunately, things happen from time to time. We can look at some of those strands, but basically, as we work with senior citizens, we work with youth in my job at the youth service, and we work with mainstream theater people. So in a way, I am fortunate to really live as an artist, in a true sense of the word, as a theater practitioner and theater and poet, because when I go to work as a cultural arts officer. And it just means that sometimes the man gets more of my energy than I get of my own energy. It means that for me, an 8 hour a day does not only have that 8 hours, but maybe let's multiply it by 2. Maybe it's 16 hours for me, 8 for the man and 8 for me. But during that period, we'd be able to develop a number of on the page texts in terms of poetry collections, won a couple of awards as a theater artist, as a poet, Busting the Blues, Barefoot on Ice, Call of the Quartermaster, all available on Amazon. So we came a long way from Echoes of Young Blood, which is the first collection, which is now out of stock. We also would have had the opportunity to do a number of tours as a poet, going a number of places, to poetry festivals, interacting with a number of the poets, Oku Anuru, Linton Quincy, Muta Baruka, Brother Resistance, So during those days in the 80s, we would have done a lot of popular theater work in the Eastern Caribbean, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, shouting out my brethren, people like Boots and Fish and Kendall. We were working with these guys from back in the 80s, between Dominica and Antigua. So it's been a long journey in terms of the work.
You're watching Baje Stage TV.
The front page says, Launch is sinking.
That's a paper, huh? This movement has never and will never rest on hotels of any political party. This is House of the Nation. Over 150 years. You see your
I'll show you, yeah, but I really that thing. I'm gonna tell you he's a confused old man.
Through vaccines. More what? Then it's more they're gonna get.
You know, it's not just uniforms for the digital. Y'all need an entire makeover. You need to capture the imagination of the young people. Cause one of the things they never know.
Forget about those who make way for the development. Oh, I got some big plans for this space.
28 days notice to vacate. You can't just do this.
Of course I can. Let's talk about my portion of the land.
The latest work, which will be the House of Landship, which the story behind House of Landship is pretty interesting. It was an idea that started when I was doing my master's. I was looking at one of the areas we were looking at is the building the National Theatre and investigating the International Theatre stage. And we were looking at like theatre festivals like Edinburgh and one in France and a couple of others, and looking at its relevance and how it was changing over the years, and how do we build national theatre. And I mean, the examples that are there in most metropolitan countries, national theatres are usually built around buildings. So my thesis was that in small island states like Barbados, national theatres really should be built around the cultural forms. So it started with a practical essay based on my country, creating a play to take to one of the international festivals. I thought that landship was the most important cultural form. So I wrote around that, using the landship as the for the text for the play, etc. And how we would do this play for one of the international festivals. But then I came home after the masters, and a couple of years passed. And then one day I just decided to sit down and say, let me write this play. And strange enough, it was just around the 150th anniversary of the landship. And I decided, let me write this play. I mean, it was a practical essay thing. You write all this, right? You get through that. But is the idea really that you're touting really was about? I mean, we in Barbados, we don't have a national theatre. So if we were going to build a national theatre, how would we do that? Build around the Daphne Joseph Hackey Theatre or the Empire Theatre? No, you can't do that. You have to still build national theatre based on your cultural forms. So your national theatre is not just 5 people. The national theatre is about how you utilize your theatre that makes it relevant, using those elements of your culture that is, and this was reinforced for me even here recently 2 years ago when I went to Vietnam. I went to Vietnam, Hanoi. I was invited there for their international poetry festival. And during my stay there, I had a chance to see a number of performances, not just poets, but they introduced us to a lot of their dance, mainly dance programs and stuff. And I noticed in a lot of the productions that they would have contemporized a lot of traditional stuff. And they use a lot of cultural forms and elements of their culture within the production and in the staging of their work. So I decided to write the play, and actually started to do the research. Talk with captain, visiting, and wrote the play. The play, to my mind, is still a work in progress, but from the get-go, I think I enjoyed and it continues to enjoy a pretty interesting run. When we first did it, it was actually written for competition, because that's another thing about me. I don't really sit down and write plays like that. I go beside that if you really think about and just write the play, or that is a competition and I'm writing it for the competition, or that I'm commissioned to write it, right? Outside of that, I would just play with actors and create, create work with actors and, right? So I actually did sit down to write The House of Landship. And inspired more because there was a competition, a French competition actually, that had an open space for other genres, a language from the Caribbean. So I entered it, and I actually won the best non-francophone play for 2013, the Villa de Paris prize. So actually went up to Paris and received the prize. And so I continued writing. That was just for text. So we started writing. We had shared a couple of drafts with a couple of people, and then the opportunity, I decided stage it, and then the opportunity came up to do it. Well, it wasn't really supposed to be done for a folk concert, but what happened was, I was supposed to do the folk concert that year. And I had an idea that I wanted to work with, again, working with forms. And what happened was, I decided, when they asked me to do it, to do this folk concert, they also said that whatever they did for the folk concert, they wanted to take Carrie Festa. And I've been involved in a couple of Carrie Festas as an actor. I have been to a couple of Carrie Festas. And I said to myself, really and truly, I wouldn't really carry a folk concert piece to represent theater, really. I wouldn't mind kind of folk concert piece for the village, but so I decided, look, but I got this Playhouse of Landship, which could work as a piece that can represent. But as a folk concert piece, I don't think is really where I really wanted to carry the folk concert, right? But I said, well, if that's the policy, let's go with House of Landship and let me see how we can shape House of Landship to fit within the criteria for a folk concert. Because Landship is wordy, it's heavy, it's a text. I see folk concerts as a mixture of folk elements, folk music, folk dance, you know what I mean, all the other elements and spectacle, etc. So I know it had the spectacle in the dance in terms of Landship, because Landship people dance. And I knew that if I can add some song, it will put that element of song, and I went for it. There's some other stuff that I had to deal with as it relates to that. Things like, can House of Landship represent on a day of national significance? Hello? The person who's really trying to push that, I mean, it happened, but I know some people weren't pleased about it because it wasn't about the riots. And my argument is that every year you don't have to play riots to represent a House of Day of National Significance. And there are many stories that can be done around the riots. Yes, I thought that House of Landship can well represent on a day of national significance, because I think on the day and on the times of the riots that the Landship people and Landship was very much present. And I did find one record of where somebody who was a Landship member either was in prison or something like that. So that story on the 150th anniversary, I thought was good enough to represent on the day of national significance, and it did happen. I actually wrote in a scene especially for the occasion, and that's the beauty of theater, you know. Did get some licks, but we got a standing ovation at the end of that production.
I was there. It was a great show. It was a spectacle for whenever the brothers, and we definitely got footage for that somewhere.
Yeah, we got special footage of that. John Hunt was the choreographer for the production. Great job, John. So the play went on from there. We did a second version for Carrie Festa. Then we came back and we tried to do a version again at the Steel Shed. And then the guys from America took up the production actually. We did a whole rewrite, and that's the final draft that we're working with right now for publication, where we actually got it down to 2 hours. And they did 5 nights in an off-Broadway production up in New York. The response to which was great. It was really interesting to see these American actors doing this Bajan play. And the audience was mixed. The audience were Bajan people who live in America who came, and their traditional audience of Black Americans. And the story was told. The people loved the production. They came down here and they were pretty tired by the time they got down here, but they did it. It happened. And we give thanks for that. So where we at with House of Landship now, we would love to do a text, have the text done so that can work with schools. I know that right now there's a teacher in Antigua that is thinking about working with it with her students for CXC, and I know that one teacher here is also working with it for CXC students because landship is one of the cultural forms that is on the CXC syllabus.
I want to ask you about the Baobab Festival. What is the future? This is something fantastic.
Talk about how come you gotta talk about
the struggles of the theater artists in Barbados, man.
Yes.
Kill your dead after 45 years. You can't want a more exciting idea than the Baobab International Theater Festival. Based on the Baobab tree, which we have a history of the Baobab tree in Barbados, one of the earliest, longest living trees in Barbados. That represents Africa. It represents the diaspora. I mean, it's a true Barbadian emblem that really resonates with Africa and Barbados, and that strong symbol. So I used it to create this festival, and the idea behind this festival was that in a, let's say, 10 to 12 day window, which is really the traveler's window. People come here for a week, they come here for 2 weeks. So let's have a theater festival over a 2-week period, right? That allows somebody to come to the festival, to pass through. They get to at least see 2 plays within the 2 things. We train a lecture to my girlfriend and our good theater friend. The late Guy Goring memorial lecture. We throw in some workshops. We were hoping that the university could come on board. So over the 2 weeks, we have at least 3 productions, local production and visiting production going on, and basically, you got a festival. We were hoping to get some guys from South Africa. We're doing some interesting things with video and community building as well. So outside of the theater itself, we wanted to have, because my forte really is theater development, so we wanted to have that element present too, in terms of workshops and bringing in some good people that we would have interacted with in our world journeys and our interactions around the world. A number of people around the place that we would love to have that exchange with Barbados and have my Barbadian brother and sister that into the arts interact with some of these people. Yeah? Because the same way that I go interact with people at different points and places in the world, it'd be nice to bring some of these people to Barbados as well.
Let me be slightly wicked. Like now there's a lot of talk about funding. Is it now a perfect time? Then again, now it's COVID. So now, how do you think we're going to go forward with this COVID thing now to bring it right to the modern time? How is theater going to survive with this COVID thing?
Well, again, 2 things are happening with me. Coming up in November, I have the festival, storytelling festival in St. Croix, Cayman with Henry. The Jamaican Poetry Festival and the Medellin Festival, all virtual this year. We will have had an opportunity to do something in Kenya and Tunisia, but COVID would have kind of got in the way of that. So stuff was happening virtual. Outside of the virtual stuff, I think in terms of the theater, we're presently working with the Mustard Seed young people as their visiting director for the next couple of months. And one of the things that we're really looking at with these young people is how do we create a piece of theater that represents the present times in terms of social distancing, wearing a mask, following the COVID what do you call it? Protocols.
Yeah.
Who does all this affect theater? What kind of piece of theater work look like working with these protocols? It's an interesting challenge in terms of finding a framework to work with it. So that is that's where I'm at now in terms of my theater work, and trying to look at this with a group of young people over the next couple of months, and hopefully to come up with something that reflects that. And then working virtually in terms of still trying to get my work out there as a performance poet and storyteller, and trying to create a brand that hopefully when there's some leveling out of this stuff, we can probably get back to not what it was before, because I don't think it will ever get back there, but see how we can work, because I think in the past we've had a lot of north-south interaction. We want to fly New York and London, and I think coming out of this COVID, we're gonna need to switch some directions. I think they're gonna have to be a lot more south-south relationships. South-south relationships is really what is going to be the future, along with vaccines. But
now, black man struggle through the years, oppressed with the burdens and the fears. A white whip rules his head, a shackled soul makes him a dead. The African no longer know himself. The African no longer know himself. Development arising all around. The concrete got him nailed to the ground. He walking and he walking, he don't know what he walking for. Say that he free, but it's psycho slavery. African no longer know himself. The African no longer know himself. Free up yourself, brother African. Free up yourself now. Free up yourself, brother African. Free up yourself now, now, now. African no longer know himself. The African no longer know himself. Put him in Barbados, him a Bajan. Put him in Jamaica, him Jamaican. Put him in England, him a Englishman. Put him in America, goddamn Yankee man. The African no longer know himself. The African no longer know himself. Free up yourself, brother African. Free up yourself now. Free up yourself, brother African. Free up yourself now, now, now.
But Laugh It Off was one of those periods where, you're just in a new relationship and you're spending more time in the relationship, and the brethren getting forward and doing it, and then you're not, your foot not in the place where it should be when it should be. However, Laugh It Off started a group of us, Thompson, Tom Cross, Guy Goring, Hinkson came around for some time, and myself. We used to go around to bars, and we would sit and have a beverage, and we would talk about theater, we was always looking to see how we can recreate a show, continue that tradition of the benchers, comedy show, review show. We had like Pampalam was happening, and you had like Talk Tent that was happening. So we decided to start this production set in a rum shop. Yeah. And we talked about it. I think Sim was doing some scripting around, but in the end, we just put these characters together. Looking to create a review show, a show that looked at issues that happened in the year, and we're having some stock characters, and we're gonna do a real review show, really laugh, really funny show. So we really needed some really strong characters, and so we had Wendell Smith. He's a really funny guy, and we had Lemuel Take Pat Rice, Tony Thompson, and you had Blow Blow, which was Al Archer. He was doing the flute thing, and we had in that first year we had Michelle Barrow, who played Nuxina. She's who created the character Nuxina. Michelle Barrow created the character Nuxina. We had Sade Leon Slinger, who was Tit Pat's first wife. She was relieved the second year by Wilhelmina Aso Fat, which was Peter Allen, who came in, I think, the second year. And John Walker, Fufu, the Fufu sang. And I think that first year, we had a really great show. We knew it could work. Unfortunately, because of my relationship, I was not a board member of the final company that they set up, but I was there as one of the first in the first production as Iroy. I played Iroy, the beach vendor. Yeah. And we used to have people rolling out in the seats at the theater. The show used to run from probably October or something like that. It used to run like 3 or 4 nights a week, right through till about January, February. Long running show. People rolling out the seats, jumping up in hysteric laughter. Oh man, really good memories. John Gilmore, 1 year, I think the second year. Also did some scripting for Laugh It Off as well. Remember doing some scripting. Had the producer biting his nails and all kind of thing. But again, over those 5 years, we had, of course, the first 5 is always the best 5, you know. And then I went on a artist in resident program at SUNY campus of upstate Albany State University. Partners of Monica sponsored that artist and writers residence. It was like a month that I was there. I got to do a lot of stuff in that month on campus, in theater. I was able to do a dramatic reading of Guns N' Levels, When the Eagles Scream with the theater department. I had the opportunity of doing classes with Professor Judith Johnson, who was teaching there at the time, in craft and creativity classes, writing all the while, and also to do some readings in and around the Albany area. So So it was an interesting visit. Unfortunately, over the years, I've had a couple of artists and writers in residence. Also had an artist and writer in residence in Kentucky on 2 stints. One directly with the Jefferson Community College. And the first one was included the same college along with Bellarmine and U of O and Metropolitan Universities. We did a lot of readings on campus, readings throughout the community. It was very, very interesting in terms of the response in the black community as well as in the white community. I ended up getting the keys to the city of Louisville, Kentucky, and being made an honorable colonel, Colonel Winston Farrell. Yes, a number of awards from organizations who were very impressed with the work. And so we were invited a second time to that space. And then we also had, in the mid-90s, early 90s, I met a guy called John, who was from London. I met him in Jamaica. We were doing some Caribbean lab work. He was excited about the poetry because I did a demonstration of my poetry in Jamaica. And John Martin, he had the PAN project in London, and he decided, look man, I want you to come across to London and spend 2 weeks with my theater company. Let's look at how can we make a play using that poetry. So we got a British Council visitorship to go down there, spend the 2 weeks with him, and we explored some stuff, which I promised to continue working with when I got back to Barbados. Never really happened. But outside of the 2 weeks with him, I got to spend another 2 weeks just touring across the UK. So from down south in Bath and Bristol up to Sheffield, to the north, Liverpool, everything in between. Working from doing stuff in prisons. I did some stuff in prison in Liverpool, security prisons. Did stuff with the place called the Window or the Door somewhere. And also did some stuff with the Black Key in Liverpool. And so across the UK, Birmingham, performed at the Cave Theatre, Birmingham, Coventry. So all across the UK, we had that interaction in the 90s. And the other thing that was really interesting in my 45 years was my work as a performance poet. I remember very early when we created the Busman, because the birth of the Busman, Headley, the drummer, David Headley, tries to remind me that I was doing Busman from at school. But I don't remember Busman at school at all. I remember creating the Busman when I was doing a job, working a kind of Monday job just after I left school. And I was in the lunchroom one afternoon sitting down, kind of bored, and I was knocking on the thing, right? And I used to live in Carter's Gap, Enterprise, Christchurch. So I used to catch a lot of bus. So from Bridgetown to, to Carter's Gap, For the night sometimes, man, them man, I used to drive them bus, man, like, you know what I mean? So I just sit down, and I just, every morning, them waiting. Why is the bus then talking about the bus man? I started to write this poem on the thing, you know what I mean? That's how I remembered it. And I remember performing it live for the first time at the Spice Town Festival. Now, Spice Town was one of the first places that had this. I'm trying to remember if they had a Spice Town Festival even before the Oyster Fish Festival. But it's them early times. It started for a year, 2 years maybe, and then it stopped. Yeah? I remember doing it in Spice Town on that occasion. And then we were doing it all over the place. It entered NIFCA, it got NIFCA. That's how it became so popular, because it entered NIFCA in 1980 with the Busman and a piece called Take Your Time How You're Running Child, played by a live band called Aura. And I remember, so it was the first live band poet, right? And then the Busman was done with Willet, when Puka Willett's brother, Nigel, and Headley on conga and, you know what I mean, right? So it went right through preliminaries. We did they did preliminaries over at the BUT headquarters, I remember. The NIFCA preliminaries happened over there. Or semi-finals or something like that. I think it was semi-finals. Because the band played live. And then we played live at the Culloden Farm, what we would call the showcase then, which would be like the gala. There's one big gala show at Culloden Farm on the outdoors. And we mashed them up with Take Your Time. And it played on radio. We got the clips from those, and I remember Julian Rogers used to push the song on radio, Busman, and the other lady, Linda Waldron. Those were the announcers around at the time. It was more, you know, they played this NIFCA thing, and it caught on from there, and then, you know, school children started doing it. It became a staple up to today. I mean, it's still an interesting track. We did another version of it with a live band recording, and I'm sure before the year is out, you'll probably hear a new recording of it again. Trust me, because I was in the studio doing some stuff with it earlier.
Walkway in the sky collapse. He is covered as a fowl. Every jack eye wide, mouth twist and surprise, frightened in the pants. Janet, let she coming for truth, Lord. Give me a chance.
I would just want people to be aware of the work that is out there right now in terms of what we're trying to do, in terms of using the arts, not just as a means of entertainment, but how do we use the arts as a means of empowerment and as a means of raising social consciousness of people. How do we use the media right now, platforms, to promote that work, and we're trying to do that through video, through using the poetry, through getting the work online and out there so that people could get it. In terms of word for the young people and people who might be interested in trying to make 40 years in something like the arts, it has not been an easy journey always. I remember as a young man going to places like Russia and North Korea and you know, I mean, celebrating in different areas and different forums. It's been an interesting journey for me in terms of in the arts. What the arts has allowed me to do is to see the world. It has allowed me to network. It has allowed me to meet interesting people and to enter the hearts of people in different spaces. And even with this coronavirus, I realized over the last couple of months, through the virtual platforms, we are able to still connect really homes and hearts of people around the world, you know, Africa, Latin America, some parts of Europe and America, and of course here in Barbados. So we want to continue that, and we want to encourage any young person who want to kind of do that kind of, have that kind of distance and to have that kind of growth. That the thing is to be consistent in what you're doing. Stick at it, be consistent, keep working, keep learning, because you're always learning something. You never know it all. Sometimes I think maybe I'm too humble, but to be humble is to be strong too, you know. So be consistent, learn as much as you can, commit to what you're doing. You got a lot of commitment. If you don't have commitment, then you're saying nothing. So commit. Invest in what you're doing. Invest. Learn about it. Commit. Walk good. Be honest.
We found 25,000 pounds of powder.
A wonderful feat. But did you get away with all of it?
All of it. Most of that powder is now in a safe place. Men, women, and children loaded themselves with it and carried it off. But you know who was their chief enemy? Christophe. He was sent by General Leclerc to cut them off.
What you expect me to do? From the time General Louverture submitted and asked us to submit, General Leclerc constantly sends the local generals to suppress those whom they call brigands, enemies of the French government. You suppress them too, Dessalines. You obey his orders too?
Yes. I carried out General Leclerc's orders and I suppressed brigands, but I only suppressed the ones who disagreed with me.
The one and only Winston Farrell. We want to thank him so much for joining us here on Baje Stage TV. We want to thank NCF again for allowing us to come here at the Queen's Park Steel Shed. We want you guys to join us for the next exciting episode of Baje Stage TV, where we talk all about Bajan theatre and Bajan theatre practitioners. This is your boy, Di Brown, saying, lights down.